Out. All right, let's head over to the Zoom line where we're going to have a little bit of Minnesota and Kansas connecting via the interweb, or as my son and I like to call it, the tubes. We got our tubes connected all over the place. How you doing today, Warren Martin?
Doing great. How you doing today, Jason?
Excellent. Of course, Warren Martin with Kansas Strong, and $60 a barrel is where oil and gas is today. And, every now and then I do like to revisit this topic because we did an article probably in 2016, 17, 18, something like that, that really said that actually it might have been closer to COVID now that I think about it. It was after COVID now that I'm thinking about it. That, like $70 is kind of the new $100. Is that because of inflation, so much had changed with the price of oil? And then when Landman came out, um, John Hamm's character, the oil tycoon, if you will, I think he said right around $60, $70 was that sweet spot for oil and gas. Because if you get too much, well, you got these problems that come up and they can cost money. Sure, you're making money, but your problems might outweigh what you're making. And then if you're goes under, well, you got a whole new set of problems. Where's Kansas at? Because you guys have so many independent stripper wells out there and independent companies that you might not follow the current price of barrel, if you will,
Yeah,
price of oil.
yeah, we have the most marginal wells of any state in the United States except for Texas. Texas were to lose all of its marginal wells, it'd do just fine because it's got major companies that are doing major production there. Kansas is predominantly marginal wells or stripper wells, and we're marginal and stripper wells. Those are two different ways of looking at the same thing in our case. And so for us here in Kansas, we really need, and just kind of correct what you said to begin with. Today we're at $73 oil, which in Kansas translates to the 60s. We're about $10 below whatever the price of oil is here in Kansas with our oil on average, give or take, depending on which region you're coming from. But here in Kansas, we need to be in the 60s, definitely upper 60s, to be able to continue production at current levels. We really need to be at $70 a barrel for us to be able to add to our current production and still have those margins to account for when things don't go well, when things go the wrong direction. And so, we work on those really tight margins. And you're exactly right. That has really changed after COVID. It's changed after COVID because our labor costs have substantially gone up. Before COVID, we were paying $17, $18 an hour for rig workers. Now we're paying $27 an hour for rig workers. Before COVID, your steel pipe was way cheaper than it is today. And so everything that you look at, our electricity rates, we've gone through, I believe we're looking at going through our third rate increase since COVID on electricity rates. And here in Kansas, we do not get industrial rates for our oil and gas production. And so, that our electricity costs have gone up substantially. So that all of that tightens our margins. So what was applicable back in 2020 is no longer applicable today. And we really need to be in the upper 60s on Kansas prices for us to be able to continue production and be able to go out and put in new wells to keep that production level up. Because really here in Kansas, we're not doing major discovery. What we're doing is we're adding those wells to keep our production levels up in the field.
You mentioned the 73 down to 60. And of course, in North Dakota, they got what's known as the Bakken discount, if you will. And it plays with the price a little bit to make it more advantageous and a little bit more profitable, I guess, at the end of the day. It manages risk really for the oil and gas company and the supply chain along the whole way, and even the local communities. Is that what we're talking about with yours, Warren? Is kind of it's a discount, or they call it the Bakken discount in my neck of the woods. What is it down in your area? I guess.
On average, generally, as a rule of thumb, people say whatever the price is, take $10 off. It's not
Okay.
actually that. It's closer to $8 in most of the parts of Kansas. Some parts, it's higher. At some parts, you don't take nearly that much off. Some parts you take more than that off. But it's really based on the quality and gravity and all of the viscosity and all of that of the oil. That where we have to transfer our oil to be able to mix it in the right ratio to be able to produce the products that the refineries want to produce. So it's about $8 really here in Kansas.
Yeah, and I tried to explain it to somebody once, and I said it's kind of like a golfer's handicap. I go, there's certain areas where it's it's easier to play than it is at others, and so you got to have a certain handicap because if Jack Nicklaus shows up, you're in trouble. And so
Yeah.
anyway, but it's a tough thing to explain because the oil and gas industry is extremely complex, and we have such a tendency to bullet point and just move things along so quickly. It's kind of nice to stretch it out a little bit from time to time so people can really understand what's going on. And with that, we'll transition into a couple campaigns that you have going on. One is with Glenn Beck, and another one is with PBS. And that's fun because it's kind of like you got the yin and the yang, if you will, of ideology. And Glenn Beck would be more on the conservative side when it comes to the political aisle. PBS a little bit more on the liberal side, and that's very stereotyped because that's not necessarily true. I love PBS. I was a huge Charlie Rose fan growing up, and he's a big influence on me in my career. Same thing with Glenn Beck. I was a fan of his back when he was a shock jock DJ back way, way a long time ago. So it's fun to watch his career, evolve as a natural curious person. That's how I look at Glenn Beck, as just more of a natural curious person more than anything. So talk to me about the campaigns that you have going and the dates and what's going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a technical point here that a lot of people don't understand, but we have to be really clear about because our campaign is not with PBS. Our campaign is with public television stations. PBS is one of those, and there's the dominant one in the public television sector. But we produced a show with Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid. And Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid is a public television show that's produced to be released on public television stations across the country. Many of those are PBS stations. But the Dennis Quaid team came out to Kansas and Wichita to spend 2 days filming with us to really talk about changing the conversation about oil and gas. We did that back in January. They put that show together. I was surprised at how long it takes for this process to put together this show. We finally got it into distribution 1st of May, and now it is being released in June to public television stations, over 170 television stations around the country. Here in Kansas, in Wichita, it's going to air on June 23rd, and on most of those stations, it'll air the first time on June 23rd. But then that show will be available to those public television stations for a full year to be able to rotate in as they need it. A lot of public television stations, they don't exactly follow network trends where you have a 28-minute show or you have, exact time limits on your shows. And so it ends with you have these filler spaces that you need to fill. And this is one of those segments that's produced as a mini documentary. It's about a 4-minute show that is able to plug in between some of their bigger shows to get them back on the right time schedule for their next show. So it's going to be a really good opportunity. It's starting to air now. The big day for us will be June 23rd. And then it'll be available for the rest of the year, playing at different times throughout the country. So that's our public television with Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid. And we're really excited about that.
And when we're talking about Glenn Beck,
Mhm.
that is a different campaign, correct?
Different campaign, yes. Different
T-
campaign, different
Go ahead.
audience. We reached out to Glenn Beck and started talking with him. We really spend almost all of our money to reach what we call the messy middle. The 40% of about 40% of the population of Kansas that says they don't have enough information about the oil and gas industry to say whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And that's the people that we're trying to target to help them understand what we do, how we do it, why it's important to you. This is a unique campaign. We went to Glenn Beck and we talked with Glenn Beck and shared with him about our company. And this campaign, it's one of the rare times we're actually reaching out to what we call preaching to the choir. We're reaching out to people that, for the most part, are already supportive of the oil and gas industry, are fans of energy independence in the United States. But Glenn Beck has a phenomenal ability to activate his audience. And so what we're doing there is we're trying to reach out to them, to share with them Kansas Strong resources that they can then share on their social platforms to help us spread the word about the oil and gas industry in Kansas. And so we put together this campaign. If you go to oilisgood.com, you can see the campaign and you can see shareable resources on that page that you can share to social media and help us promote the oil and gas industry here in the state of Kansas or across the country. But our primary focus is here in the state of Kansas.
What was that website again?
Oilisgood.com. And it came from a phrase from me speaking on stage. And I got up after someone who was talking about all of the negatives, the emissions and the environmental issues that have to do with oil. And I was the next speaker up, and just impromptu, out of the blue, I said off the top of my head, I said, I just want to start with one statement. Oil is good. And then I turned the entire speech into showing how oil is good. And, there are negatives to our industry. There are things, the issues that we have to deal with and we have to be cognizant of. But the reality is a lot of times we focus on those and we don't focus on all the benefits that the oil and gas industry adds. We completely ignore those. And the only way that you can really have a real conversation about the oil and gas industry is if you realize that oil is good because it's created the lifestyle that we all get to enjoy today. And yes, there's issues, but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have to understand we have the lifestyle we have today because of oil. Now, let's talk about how do we use it moving forward in the most environmentally efficient and effective way possible to not destroy the lifestyle we have, but to continue to live in a better way.
Talk to me a little bit about the different audiences here, because to me, this is a story within the story, which is having to actually have two separate messages to two different audiences. And I can tell you from my experience, I've, I've spoke over to 100 audiences, and there are times where, boy, you could hear a pin drop in the room, or the security's escorting me out. I think I'm doing the industry a favor, but it's the first time maybe they're hearing something they don't want to hear, especially during the ESG movement and some of these other things. And so I've done the red meat, but at the same time I've accidentally stumbled into, oh my goodness, I'm the most wanted man. I'm public energy #1 right now here, Warren. You've done a lot of speaking too, much more than me when it comes to this topic. Talk to me about those two different audiences, navigating through, choosing words wisely, those types of things, because I don't think the average person understands really what a skill this is.
Yeah. So I have been doing this a long time. So what I'm going to say really won't apply to everybody, because on average here with Kansas Strong over the past 8 years that I've been here, of course, the first years weren't nearly as much, but over the past few years, we have averaged between 150 and 200 speaking engagements a year. And so I do a lot of speaking engagements. I never write a speech. I never have notes. The main thing is if you want to really communicate, you have to know what it is that your industry does. You have to know what the information is. But the most important thing is to know your audience, know who it is you're talking to. Most of the time when people put together presentations, all they really focus in on, and we have this conversation within our board meetings, we get sucked into this idea of what is it we want to communicate. And that's not the right place to start in advertising. That's not the right place to start in doing a speech. The real question that we should be asking is what is it our audience knows or thinks they know? What is it that they believe? And you always start with the audience, and then you figure out, how can I share something that relates to them with what they know, with what they believe, with where they are, and then take them from that point and move them to the point that I want them to understand. And I think that that is the real art of public speaking and communication and advertising, is meeting your audience where they are and then moving them to where you want them to be at the end of the presentation. And that is really hard because most of us are so concerned about what we're going to say that we have little time to think about who it is we're saying it to. And at Kansas Strong, we put a huge emphasis on identifying the audience that we're trying to talk to, and then sculpting the message that really meets that audience where they are, and then begins to move the needle to a greater understanding of our industry and a greater understanding that will enable them to choose a better energy future. And that's really the challenge that I think our industry, we do not spend a whole lot of time thinking about. We spend a lot of time thinking about, this is what I want to say, this is how I want to say it, this is what I want people to understand. And we completely miss our audience because we spend very little time really focusing in on, what is it the average person thinks? What is it the average person in this room thinks? And I have never been in a conversation, I've never been in a room where I've been in extremely liberal crowds. I've been in extremely conservative crowds. Most of them are kind of in the middle. And I've never been in a room where it turned into an argument. And it turned, I went to a renewable energy conference and talked about oil and gas, and it didn't turn into an argument. It turned into a conversation that was very amenable to both sides, because I always try and start with, what is it they understand? What is it they believe? How can I relate to that? And then how can I build from that towards where I want them to be? I may not get them all the way to the finish line in one presentation, but can we take a few steps that enhances our understanding of our industry?
How did you choose Glenn Beck? There's other conservative, or that's, I guess, that activation side of the aisle, because it's definitely on the more of a conservative side. So I don't mean to assume or pigeonhole, but it's interesting about Glenn Beck is because a lot of people will go to somebody like a Tucker Carlson or something like that, and Glenn Beck was really one of the pioneers when it came to doing his own network and trailblazing that audience that will pay directly to him in order to get his message. And people don't understand how powerful that is. That's like a huge, I came from the newspaper industry originally, so I understand the power of a paid subscription versus free and a number of different things along those lines. But why did you guys choose Glenn Beck? Because I think it's a great choice, but I'm looking at it more from a distribution and from a inside baseball, behind the scenes demographic side of things. Why did you guys choose him?
It's real simple. This is an experiment for us. Like I said, we don't spend very much money at all preaching to the choir. And so if we were going to do it, we needed a great test to be able to see if it was effective and if it worked. So first of all, we've never really used spokespeople before, because you use spokespeople and then they start feeling the heat from people that don't like our industry, and they ask you to pull ads. And so we just stayed away from that. So if we were going to find someone who was going to speak on our behalf, it had to be someone who was already speaking about the oil and gas industry and energy independence and would be able to handle the heat. That's quite a few people that are there for that. Second of all, it had to be someone that had reach and had some pull. There's a lot of people that were there, but the number one thing, the reason we went with Glenn Beck, is we looked at not only radio ratings and who was getting the ratings that were there. What I looked at was which radio, because we wanted to do it on radio, which radio host have a history of being able to activate their audiences to do major things outside of their own network. And Glenn Beck has been able to incredibly activate his audiences, working with Israel, working with North Carolina in the follow-up to a hurricane, working with other major catastrophes that have happened in recent years, forming outside organizations that his supporters support. looking at when he brings a story on the air and someone needs help and how his listeners respond to help that individual. He has, by far, in my opinion, the best record of getting people to activate and respond to the message that he's sharing on his show. So those three things kind of came together for us, and we saw that as a great opportunity as a test case to see if we communicate with people who are already supportive of our industry, can we take them to the next step and help them become advocates of the industry, not just supporters, but advocates of the industry that would also help their communities understand how to choose their best energy future.
Oilisgood.com is the website of the campaign. Kansas Strong is the website for Kansas Strong, I guess. It'd be the, it's .com too, right? KansasStrong.com.
Yes, yes.
Warren Martin is the guest, and we're going to talk about some events and dinners and some local things that you have going on, transitioning or segueing out of the Glenn Beck campaign and the public television Turning Point. Is that the name of it? Turning Point?
Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid.
Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid. See what happens, Warren, when I don't write my notes down here? I'm getting older and I'm finding that out. That my elevator doesn't go up all the way like it used to, as quick as it used to. It goes down faster, just doesn't go up as quick. So you got some events coming up here. First of all, you do, speaking to schools, you do speaking to Rotary, bridge clubs, Ladies Aid, coffee club at the McDonald's, if they'll have you type of a thing.
Yesterday, I went to a bank and spoke to a Bring Your Child to Work day at a local bank. So we do everything.
At a bank?
At a bank, yes.
Boy, they're like, hey, come on in here, entertain our kids. Forget Binky the Clown. Let's bring in Warren Martin. Okay, that sounds
pretty much
good.
The same thing.
Right, exactly. Hey, that's a compliment. That's a good thing. And that's really part of it, though. Part of it is entertainment. But I used to always tell people, like the Crude Life and a lot of the programs I do, we're based on infotainment. So you're always going to have information at the root, and then we're going to try to have a little bit of fun with it, because as boring as information is, you can put a little bit of Rocky Road in with your vanilla and that kind of thing. It doesn't always have to be boring type of a thing. So what kind of events you got coming up here? Because you get a little creative. I know you got a dinner coming up, and
so we transition in the summer quite a bit during the school year. During the school year, it's predominantly social clubs and schools and those types of events that you were just mentioning. In the summer, we kind of transition. We got coming up here in just a couple weeks. We'll be at the Country Stampede, which is a big country music festival here in the state of Kansas. In between all of the acts, our commercials will be playing in between those acts, and we'll be there for that entire show. And then also in July, we have a big one coming up out in Garden City. We're going to have our 4th oil field worker celebration. We're really excited about this. We're expecting 150 to 200 people to show up for this oil field celebration out in Garden City, one of our hubs out there for the oil and gas industry in the state. It'll be at the Clarion Conference Center on July 24th. And from 5:30 to 8:30, we invite every oil and gas worker that is working in the industry to come out for a free evening, free drinks, free food. Last event, we gave away over $4,000 in raffle prizes. And then we spend a little bit of time talking to them about why they should be proud of the job that they're doing, because their job is what creates the world in which we live. And we try to just motivate them and encourage them and inspire them because of the job that they do. A lot of times those people that are out there on those rigs, they don't get a lot of encouragement along the way. And so this event is really dedicated to encourage our workers that are enabling us to have the industry that we have today. And so that'll be, again, July 24th in Garden City at the Clarion Conference Center, our oil field worker celebration.
And raffle. Talk to me about the raffle.
Yeah, raffle items are great. Cynthia here in the office, she does a great job going and rounding up those raffle items. We give away grills. pressure washers. We give away tools. We give away gift cards, fishing supplies, coolers, Yeti coolers, all kinds of things. And like I said, last raffle we gave away over $4,000. I think it was actually probably 4,500 or more dollars worth of raffle items that we gave away to these oil field workers. All they got to do is show up. They get a ticket. We draw it and we hand it out. And it's really been amazing the past three that we've done. How many of these workers have come up to us afterwards and said, I've never really been proud of my job. It's just something I did for money, but tonight I was proud of the job that I do. And that's really what it's about, is bringing that pride. We should be proud about the industry in which we work, because we are what enables America to work. Energy, by definition, is the ability to do work. And without these oilfield workers, no work gets done.
Let's try to make Cynthia's job a little bit easier. So if somebody's listening to this and they want to donate anything from a sweatshirt to a grill to a pressure washer, how do they do it? What's the, give me the elevator pitch, give me three, 4 floors of an elevator pitch to help Cynthia out.
Yeah, so that's what we are doing right now, is we're going around rounding up sponsorships and raffle donations at this point in time. All you have to do is get in touch with us here. You can go through our website at kansasstrong.com, send me a personal email at warren@kansasstrong.com, and connect with us. We can tell you how to do that process and be a part of this event. We'd love to take some donations if people are out there willing to make those donations. And like I said, it's all about honoring those workers that really never get celebrated.
And let's make Cynthia's job even a little bit more easier, because for those people who are in charge of donations and swag, if you will, stuff we all get, this audience that's going to come out to this is not your typical audience in terms of trade shows and conferences, because Warren, you know as well as I do, it's a lot of times these conferences are the same people going to different events and getting the same swag, and you can only give so much to certain people. And so this is a whole new crop of people that would probably never get, a hat from, from so-and-so and that type of thing, correct?
Yeah, about 20% of the people that have showed up to our previous events, I would guess probably 20% of the people that showed up to our previous events are people that would go to these other conferences and stuff. The other 80%, these are guys stepping off a rig. We have guys that are coming to this event that are still covered in oil, covered in grease. They are coming straight off of the rig and coming in and sitting down for a meal, having a drink, and having a good time with other people from other companies that are working in the same job that they're working in. So it is definitely not your typical trade show crowd. These are the guys that are out there, guys and ladies that are out there, that are in the back rooms of the offices, that are out on the rigs, that are driving the trucks. These are definitely not the people that generally show up at those trade shows or conference, or the Kyogas and ECOGAs and the other industry conferences that are out there. And that's what's exciting about it, because what we found with Kansas Strong is we have been talking with those people, and all of those people knew who we were and what we were doing, but they weren't taking it back to their businesses and sharing it with their teams. And so this is a way that we're able to share what Kansas Strong is doing on their behalf with their teams. And it's been really exciting and fun to watch.
And couple of the hottest interviews I've ever done are with the people working out in the rigs, to be honest. It's not the industry executive or the CEOs or anything like that. It's the guy that, is talking about working away from his family for 2 weeks at a time, and all the guy who's got real stories and that kind of thing. Not, not like, oh, I just jet set it in here this morning. Went down to the country club, had breakfast, and here we are. What's going on, guys? Nobody wants to hear that. So
yeah, you will definitely get more colorful interviews when you start talking to the guys that are coming off those rigs.
I tell you, it's a fun time. It is a fun time getting that camaraderie together and some of the fellowship, because a lot of these workers are just itching to talk shop. To really talk shop a little bit outside of their circle, so that they can just feel good about the industry. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about this. But we're looking at the music festival, Country Stampede, and that's in June. And then in July 24th, we've got Garden City. It's a celebration, oil work celebration. Is that what I wrote
Oil,
down?
oil field workers celebration.
Oil field workers celebration. Look at that. I took a word out in my notes. So oil field worker celebration. Clarion Conference Center, 5:30 to 8:30, July 24th. All righty. Anything else going on for events in the summer?
No, that's pretty well. We got a bunch of speaking engagements, radio
Yeah.
interviews, those type of typical things. Those are our major ones we have coming up. And then August, we'll start gearing up for our annual Cuyahoga conference, getting ready for the state fair coming up in September, ECOGA conference. So August and September, we start getting really busy again. But those are the major ones we have for this summer.
Isn't that funny how it works in blocks like that? You really got to put it into blocks. You can't.
Yeah.
That's how we did the magazine business too, and lay it out on the wall, and everything it was like a big game of Tetris at the end of the day and stuff. So it was kind of fun. But Warren Martin, all right. So any final thoughts? Anything happening that you want to make sure we plug before we take off? By the way, it's like rainy and 40 degrees here in Minnesota. Terrible weather.
No, we got beautiful weather coming in today, and I just want to once again just say, if you are interested in supporting the Oilfield Workers Celebration or finding out how to bring one to your state, go to kansasstrong.com, reach out to us, and talk with us a little bit about that. And then also, go to oilisgood.com, check out our link there at oilisgood.com, and maybe help us share the message of how great the oil and gas industry is in creating our energy future.
All righty, Warren Martin with Kansas Strong. Thank you much, sir.
Thank you. You have a great day.